Hello. Welcome to another episode of Ball Over Passion. I am your boy, George V_AFC, and we are back with another episode, another fun episode. We're here with Curran, we're here with Chris. Boys, how are we doing? Curran, I'll go to you, mate. How you doing first?
Mixed bag, but we move. Just looking forward to getting into these predictions because I've made a lot of changes. I know, and I don't think you two have. I know I have made a lot of changes because the season's not turned out how I planned it, how I thought it would at all. So yeah, interested to see if you guys have made even any changes because I think you guys were both fairly all right. You know what I mean? I didn't think there was too many changes.
No, like to be fair, no, I did. I made some changes, particularly at the bottom of the table. I'll be honest, I think my top half is really unchanged, to be honest with you. But my bottom half is quite changed because I think there was a lot of late transfers in the end that, really changed up a little bit. I would love to change my original goal scoring predictions, but because I think I went with Salah as my golden boot originally. But I think on individual awards, not too much. I think a big thing is the bottom of the table kind of put a lot of results out there, and I think a lot of this depends on how stubborn clubs are to really go through. I'm really looking at Leicester, Aston Villa for the primary distinction between those two, by the way, because I think as long as they stick with their managers, that's going to be the worst for them. But there was a lot of teams, for example, I think Everton probably moved the most in my table just based on their pure transfer window. When we did our predictions, they hadn't even done Onana and Gay yet, right? So they were lacking a midfield. They were lacking really any signings. And then boom, they've changed the face of their team a little bit. They kept Gordon as well. That was another one that was potentially leaving as well. So they ended up doing, in the end, fairly good business, which is, very odd for me. And then Leicester did even worse than I thought. They didn't do business and then lost Fofana. So it was definitely a team there that I think is going to struggle. But yeah, it's always fun to go look back at these predictions because, actually a lot of stuff happened in the last week of the transfer window. So for me, it's actually important for us to go back and update these a little bit because there's definitely a lot of contacts that got missed. I will say, though, I think the top half of my table, I'll be honest, from like 1 to 8 hasn't changed, and it didn't change. But then you've got the Graham Potter news with Thomas Tuchel getting sacked. I think that's something here on the channel we've been trying to tell everybody for a while was likely to happen. Did we think it would happen this early? I'm not too sure. I mean, Chris will probably have to explain that a little bit more if you agreed with that statement, because I know me and him were very insistent on Thomas Tuchel, not only being somebody that would leave eventually, but really somebody that I think would, be sacked down the line. I didn't think it would be this soon. I thought it was quite soon. And he still struggled to kind of go back to a back four, which I think is something that early Graham Potter is showing. It's only one game, but I think he's made similar mistakes, which is harsh in my opinion. To be fair, he can't really do anything at this point. I think these next 2 weeks, with all the Queen fallout and stuff, is going to be really good for him in terms of an international break and trying to use that to put in any kind of philosophy if he can. But he's in a tough spot. He's in a spot where I really don't think fans in general, because I'm going to keep the same energy I had for Mikel, when you come mid-season, and it's even worse now when he's come mid-season post-transfer window that he wasn't in charge of, to basically implement your own ideas on the squad, it's near on impossible. It really is. So, no, I'm excited. This is a fun video before we get into a crazy schedule, because you're going to be hearing a lot of BoP basically every day in October. We've got something like, 9-10 games, lads? Like, it's going to be preview, review. So it's fun to kind of just do a little bit of a prediction bit right now, loosen the grease. But yeah, Chris, we haven't heard from you, and it's been almost 5 minutes because I love the sound of my voice. How are you doing today? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. There's football later. Football later, so it was a bit different from the last weekend. But yeah, the predictions, I don't think I would have changed as much as Curran because I know what you guys changed. So I didn't change as much as Curran, but I think like certain surprise, like Salah's been more involved in build up, so he hasn't taken anywhere near as much shots, which has been negative. Like it may improve him as a player, which at 30, I don't know why you'd need to try to change him, but at 30, he's trying to change him, playing in a different role, getting more involved in the passing, which to me has been detrimental, but is why he won't get top scorer. Like, he's like, what? 7, 8 behind Haaland. Like, he's not getting top scorer, I don't think. So that one is a big miss already. I think
Mm.
most people missed. If you put anyone but Haaland, I think you probably missed on that top scorer.
You know what's crazy is my logic for basically including Kevin De Bruyne was I felt that City would be clear in the league. I felt that all the top challengers, we said it in the prediction show, and I'm going to reemphasize it. It's not going to be a 90-point plus league, in my opinion, this year. I think everybody's going through transition. One thing I didn't expect, by the way, though, Chris, is I felt that Liverpool would have a trouble. I think here on BoP, we were the first people to say they have to go through a rebuild. We were the first people that were really saying, I think Liverpool is something to worry about. Now, one thing I didn't recognize was how soon that would happen. I think there's a lot of issues beyond just having Salah more touchline versus inside, and a little bit more issues than just having Trent because their midfield is a mess right now, and I don't
I
know
was
how that
talking more like
spans.
with him not getting the goals is simply, well, not simply, but 90% of it is him being so far away from the goal.
A little, but he was like that last year. I mean, I don't think it was as bad because I agree with you where in a sense for me the midfield what it did was it allowed him to be more inside for sure than last season. I agree with that. Especially when you've got cover like that, you can allow Trent to take up the spaces that he does without consequence of defensive lapses. But I do think he was more touchline last year, just in general, as opposed to
I
inside.
think as the year went on, he went more and more touchline, and he got worse and worse.
Well, but that's makes sense, right? Because
Yeah.
when you do that, the more isolated you feel, and I think that's why a big reason why I don't understand Bukayo Saka gets the stick and he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves, because this is a guy that's been performing that role for over a year, and we've been saying the same thing on BoP. I think you get your players that are more likely to score as close to goal as possible, as often as possible, and that's something that I don't think Klopp's doing. But just to get it back to the predictions, I actually think that's going to have a huge effect. Not only just on the Salah Golden Boot shouts, but I think just in general, Heung-min Son, another player who was the Golden Boot winner last year, is somebody that has been in awful form, for example. And I think this is something that if you're a nerd, everybody was like, he's overperformed XG. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But this is the one player, by the way, I must say, throughout the entirety of his career that's overperformed XG. And so I think this is the first time that we're seeing a dip from Heung-min Son. Like, we see purple patches with him. I think that's over exaggerative. It's hyperbole. It's not the first time we've seen a dip, but it's the first time that we're seeing him so consistently not perform to his XG. I think that's fair. Every season he's been overperforming XG, and maybe it's finally caught up with him. But ultimately, mate, we're looking at Haaland, who is going to destroy record 10 goals. Like, I think everybody. There was no debate that he would come to this league and not kill it. I want to make that clear. Anybody with sense knew that. Did I think he would score 10 goals in the amount of matches that he has so early? No. And could it be a purple patch? I don't know. A lot of people would say yes.
For me,
and it's going to get better as he adapts to the system and to the
things
players.
there's a lot more things they could do. Like, there's certain players, Guardiola has said it himself, are not willing to pass it to him when they should. Like,
Yeah.
they'll go in a 2v1 and the 2 or 3v1 in the keeper, and Foden refuses to pass, he'll shoot. So that's one extra goal. Like,
don't you think Foden's got himself? There's a little bit of topic there that he's become the Saka of 2 years ago, where it's a little bit of a utility. He's somebody that's been having to fill in spaces for the team ultimately,
get his claim to fame back.
Yeah, a little bit. And, he's suffering a little bit of that treatment. But also, if you look at City, they're also not utilizing their best attacking front. What's scary is he's doing it on his own. And so I'm guess what I'm getting at is
one other guy that Kevin De Bruyne has been.
Yeah, Kevin De Bruyne has been insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was my player of the season. And I think he's gonna do it. Like, he's been unreal. I think we've got one more season.
KDB and Curran went for Salah because he thought Liverpool would win the league.
Well, yeah, which makes sense in theory, right? But I mean, ultimately, when I have a look at it right now, guys, I think what's scary about Haaland, just to keep it on Haaland for 30 seconds, is the fact that he's doing it without very much support. I'll be real. I think Mahrez has been very poor this season. He's been a shadow of himself. They lost Sterling, another direct threat that I think has weakened them, by the way, because Grealish has been non-effective. And what you're looking at is looking at a striker that's getting all of these goals. And City create, by the way. Let's not have this narrative that they don't create. They create the most chances in the league, period. By the way, second only to us, in terms of total chances created and, the amount of XG. But if you're doing this without having your attacking forefront players on incredible form. I just find that very scary as a proponent. When a
I
striker is
don't think like
overperforming to that degree without support, it's incredible.
I don't think Grealish will perform at all this season. Like
I said it. I said it. He wouldn't do it.
Seeing the Community Shield and seeing, well, they've got one central runner, so they need to change the angles they're going to pass to. Like you can't keep putting balls outside.
Yeah.
That's the first thing and then obviously Kevin De Bruyne, he's the only one that the change won't make a difference to him. And then Grealish has no one to overlap, so he's not going to be good at all. And no one's going to overlap for the rest of the season. Like Cancelo will not overlap for him. He will stay in half space and get that like outside of the boot assist like he got for Haaland in the Champions League. Like stuff like that will continue to happen. So Grealish won't perform. And the question is, will Alvarez eventually be, because whenever he comes off the bench, he does very well.
He does well, but he's one of those second striker types. I think Alvarez is somebody that's really difficult to kind of fit in your team. It's something that if anybody has talked to me for a while, I've said my big theory, my big football thesis is that we start attacking with 6 channels. I've said that for a very long time. I've said also that we definitely recruit a kind of big and large combo again, and we start to see these versatile attackers be incorporated, that they can operate in so many different zones, but are just excellent ball strikers, really quick and efficient movers. I'm just wondering whether or not he actually gets that chance, Chris. Like, because for me, he doesn't have the opportunity to anymore. I think
the money they put in Grealish means that they have to try their hardest to fulfill. I think this year will be their last
attempt.
Big run. Like Grealish, you have to perform, or you're gonna have to leave. Hopefully, they don't kick him out for Leao, but I think that's for another day.
That's another day, and we get into it because I know you guys in the comments, and I know you guys watching want us to talk transfers. But guys, we just got rid of that, so we will be doing that much down the line. But look, guys, it's almost been 10 minutes in, a little bit of waffle here and there. It's going to be a little bit more of a relaxed stream. But Chris, I'm going to hand the reins over to you. But I think we should probably get into just tables breakdown because we don't want to keep this too long. But
I don't want to go first. So which one of you two?
I'll go first. I have no problem going first. I think Curran's got some issues with some internet, so we'll give him enough time to hear this on the playback, and then we'll be able to go through. So, Chris, why don't you shout out me? I'll explain mine.
I'm here. It's just it's a bit mad.
It is a bit mad. So here, I'll
go first table and then the change, or should I just do the new one?
I think we just do the change. I can speak to my changes. There weren't too many.
I'm with the wire and everything. Like it's not.
Yeah. So here, throw out my table, Chris, and then I'll kind of go through this. So really, again, I'm gonna say from essentially Leeds, so 13th, from 1st to 13th, it's unchanged for anybody that's coming back and has seen the table. So again, I think Manchester City are going to clearly win the league, and I think that the order is still Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea for me. I think a lot of people are harboring hopes that Arsenal gets second. I think for me right now, the biggest thing is having Thiago back or not, and having a consistent run of form. I think it's very, very logical to assume that he doesn't stay there for the course of the season, but I actually think that they go into the transfer market here, and I do think that they adjust things a little bit more. Arsenal, for me, just don't have enough marquee firepower to make use of the time. I think we're going to actually be second for quite a while, much into January, actually, to be honest with you. I think we're going to compete, but we fall away towards the end as our focus goes towards the Europa, so that's kind of what I'm expecting. I just don't think we have the depth marquee-wise to really go through there. But ultimately, a lot of this stuff is unchanged. Probably the one surprise is having Manchester United 7th as opposed to closer in 6th. But for me, West Ham, and they went and they did serious business. They backed up my opinion. Getting Paqueta, when you start looking at that midfield, guys, by the way, of Pablo Fornals, Paqueta, and Declan Rice, like that's pretty serious. And they've still kind of sparingly used. I don't think Moyes has gone that attacking, but he should have. And then when you combine that with Antonio, Scamacca, and Bowen, like that's an extremely balanced team. And for me, I just think that Manchester United, while having a really good run of form the last 5-6 games, they're going to run into trouble just like Mikel did, and they're going to have their 2 to 3 month slump, just like every new manager does, without having the recruitment and the squad being just of poor quality. So I think you're going to have a period where they're just going to really slump quite a bit, and that's why they're going to be below there. And then when you look at it, so let's look at the changes, because I think that's what's really important here. I think Everton had the biggest jump for me, that they were in the relegation spot. I've traded that with Aston Villa, and that's just because before that, Everton hadn't done business. Everton were at risk of losing Gordon when we did the predictions, and they didn't recruit any midfield, and then they recruited Onana and Gay. So for me, and they kept Gordon. So now that for me is a team that should not be fighting relegation. I think they're going to do a little bit better, and I think I put Fulham a little bit higher as well, and I replaced them with Leicester. And Leicester basically confirmed to me the fact that they did no business, and then they took out Fofana. And I think it's a matter of who stays in charge the longest, Brendan Rodgers or Steve Gerrard. And for me, I just felt that it was less likely that that Aston Villa have the quality to overcome their manager issues. I think regardless of Brendan Rodgers going or not, that squad at Leicester is too good to be relegated, even though I would love for it to happen. And the fact that they've got no Fofana makes things a little bit interesting. But for me, that's where really the big changes happen. So I kind of replaced Fulham and Everton with really a much poorer positions for Leicester and Villa. I still think Nottingham Forest are going to do poorly. I think they've recruited far too much for them to have a consistent run of games within the league, but I think they recruited too much quality that they shouldn't be at risk of relegation for a team of their quality. And I still think Southampton, I've got them still being relegated, and I think much of what I've seen hasn't really changed. I mean, they essentially now got Romeo Lavia is also out injured, who started well for them, but again, as a young prospect. And I just think that as a team, their recruitment was too young, and then they didn't recruit enough goals to replace the goals that they missed. So for me, that's going to damage them quite a bit. And I think a lot depends on Livermento's return, which we know is coming soon. He's been on the grass, 3 weeks? So it's probably another 3 or 4 before we actually see him, and that's right at the World Cup time. So I just don't know if they're going to have enough to really take themselves a lot further. But ultimately, this is my table looking back at it. I'm kind of happy. I'm happy where Palace, Newcastle are, and I think Brighton are high. But you know what? I think for me, they've got a squad right now that is incredible. The only reason I don't have them lower than Brentford right now is I just don't know if Brentford have the ability to get through injuries. For me, I think Brighton have a better squad. But ultimately, I think a lot of people, people are saying Southampton to sack their manager. I mean, I agree. I don't think Ralph Hasenhüttl is great.
A long time ago.
Yeah, it should have been a really long time ago. And look, I'd hate for Southampton to go down as well, but also there's a lot of great pickups if they do. I'll be honest with you down there. But not impressed with Forest and Leeds. Look, I think Everton do look solid, and I think they look solid because they really changed the transfer window. Keeping Gordon and doing a midfield pivot of Onana and Gay is incredible business. So for me, they were always somebody that was going to be the biggest movers in the table. I think I said that in the last prediction video. So, nice to see you, Lucas, as well. This is basically my table, though. I'm going to take it over to basically Chris and Curran. Give me your thoughts on my table, and then we'll go around the group here.
Chris, I'm actually here. So this is actually because I think I've got somehow got a stint where I've got internet, but it's good. I mean, I think that in terms of, I personally have a couple of changes that I made in the first 8, but
first,
I first, yeah, for example, yeah. But yeah, I think it's solid. I think that personally, that Leicester Southampton battle is going to be so interesting.
Curran, let me instead of because you'll probably talk about your teams generally. What is the biggest error you think in my table, and what do you think is the biggest positive in my table? And I'll put that question to Chris after. I think we'll do that because I think everyone will talk about teams generally when they go on their table. So I'll go for you. What's the biggest error that you think I have, and what do you think is the biggest positive that I'll probably get spot on?
I think you have West Ham too high, personally.
Okay.
I think that it's either that or Forest not going down, because I have Forest going down. I think they've made too many changes, and it's gonna take too long for them to gel, but they'll bounce back up once they've got it together. But in terms of what you've got spot on, I think third is good for us. I think that a lot of people are getting too excited, and I'll explain why when I do my table, what I have this second, third, fourth battle coming down to. I think third is pretty much spot on for us. I think that I'm not going to get overexcited and put a second. I'm not going to capitulate and put us fifth, but I think third is a good spot for us.
Okay, so Chris, same kind of question as Mr. Optimism. Are we totally wrong? But give me your opinion on the table that is the most wrong and the most right, in your opinion. And I know it's going to hate you doing the latter because you just don't like to do that, but you're going to have to answer that question. So what do you think? Worst and the best of this table?
Um, I think not having United sixth is something I went with as well. Uh, I think that's good because despite them being on good form, what they've won their last four after
Hmm.
losing the first two, they've given other teams a lot of chance to score against them. Despite that, the Southampton game, for example, both teams wasted a lot of chances, and then Leicester just aren't good at all. Teams like Leicester, Southampton, I'm not sure are willing to sack their manager after some poor performances in
But
the
they
past.
can't, Chris. I think logically. So one thing with Yo-Yo, I completely agree. If they get rid of Brendan Rodgers, by the way, they shoot up the table, and the quicker they do that, the better. But one thing I will say is they don't have the financial capability to do. He has an insane compensation package
Yeah,
because they
that's what
put him on
I'm
crazy
saying.
money.
For example, Leicester spent 200 plus days in the
Mm.
top four and then didn't finish top four. Like they spent the most days ever in the top four without finishing in it,
Mm.
and he still didn't get sacked after that. And then Hassan Hoover has lost 9-0 twice. He hasn't been sacked either. So those two, I think, will stay the whole season.
How
So
about
I think
Gerrard? That's a big one to me. That I think the longer he stays, the worse Villa do, and it's a big reason why I have them in the relegation fight. Like, what do you make of Steven Gerrard's ability to stay?
he gets the leeway the other two I just mentioned do.
I would love them to go down. Villa fans are kind of just the worst. Villa and Leicester fans are just my lord. I remember the ESR
What?
transfer saga, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty insane.
Let me ask you about Fulham because you've told me you're not too high on them. So why do you
Me,
have them above Everton?
me, you're talking about me?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm not too high on them doing anything like a top table finish, but I think they're an excellent team. I think I said that they had great recruitment. In fact, Bert Leno is going to be the signing of the season for me. The only reason I don't have Everton as high is because I have a feeling that Everton are going to be a team that's going to search for consistency with Lampard. I believe in Marco Silva more than I do Frank Lampard. That's the only reason. I think Everton have better players, but I think having a better manager is worth more in this league, especially towards the end of the table. So. Again, it's only like one spot. If anything, those two would switch. I have Leeds, Fulham, and Everton as a possibility to be up or
A
down.
mini league,
Yeah,
type
mini league,
thing.
maybe even Wolves. I'd throw Wolves in there,
I think Wolves
and
finished.
Brentford. And Brentford, to be fair, I think between 11th to 15th is always its own mini league. By the way, and I
Do you
think there's
think Brighton continue with the same
yes,
quality without Potter?
yeah, I know absolutely. I do. I think that they've
Some of the
recruited
names they're
too
throwing
well.
about is ridiculous.
Well,
Deserby, the
Gallardo,
like
my
this
boy.
Gallardo.
If they look, I think that Tony Bloom is a phenomenal operator.
He's a
I think
great
that
bet.
guy is probably one of the best in the game. I'll be honest with you. So I have no doubt that they replace Graham Potter with somebody of the equal talent. Whether it's the equal capability, I'm not too sure, but they've got such a talented squad that I'm really not worried, Chris, like whatsoever. I think Brighton are probably having the best quality of the rest of the squad, and a lot of this stuff will depend on managers. So for me, I'm just betting on Tony Bloom essentially having a great recruitment of it. And I think I agree here. I think Wolves have been stale with Bruno Lage, but they got my boy Goncalo Guedes, who I think has looked great so far. And they have a lot of quality themselves, a lot of attacking quality. I just find Brighton probably the most balanced between that 11th to 15th range, and then as you go up, you've got teams that I think for me are a little bit better. But yeah, that's I think a big reason why Fulham. Like I was telling you guys, I think a big reason that Fulham are going to stay up is going to be because of Bernd Leno, and I think that Marco Silva has done excellent job with that team, but also Mitrovic factor. Again, we said it. Can he replicate what he did in the championship? It looks like he can. And this is something that we didn't see the last time he was in the Premier League. So if you've got a striker that's firing for you like that with a very solid keeper that will stop shots and a manager that understands their best way. They're the most direct team in the league, by the way, guys. Like that's crazy to me. Fulham being the most direct team in the league, and that's it. There are no direct teams in the league. Everyone else is ball to feet. So I think that's going to be their special sauce. And I think Lampard hinders Everton really doing anything more than their squad deserves, because that squad does deserve to be ahead of everybody. It should be top half Everton squad. It really should. When you look at the quality and you look at what's available to them, it's massive. But then Lampard is such an anchor. Like you take that guy away, and I think they could shoot up the table. But yeah, no, that's why I think Fulham over Everton.
Yeah, I think I like your table. I don't really have anything like best or worst. I think
I mean,
Bournemouth-
shock.
It's annoying. It's annoying, isn't it, Curran? It's annoying.
Mm.
I think Bournemouth being rock bottom is probably on 90% of people's tables, and then the teams around 8th to 11th are.
Okay, can you do me a favor then? I'm going to ask you a more specific question then, because you can't give me a best and worst. Arsenal, too high or too low? Yes or no? Really quick, and then you can explain your reasoning in your table,
Oh,
but
God.
just quick, yes or no?
Neither. Like, you know me, I've
So
been on.
spot on. So you're saying so that
No,
so
you said too high or too low. So neither. It's not too high or too low.
well, it's got to be one of the two,
No,
unless you
or it
believe
could be
it's exactly spot on. So which one is it? Spot on, high or low?
I don't think it's too high or too low. That's what
So
I
you
say.
think it's spot on? Awesome. So guys, you heard it here first. Chris believes that I am spot on. That's how that works. But anyways, I think
Let me go
honestly-
next because I want to get my internet before my internet goes crazy.
No. I was just gonna say, let's transition because we could go back and forth. But sorry, Chris, you were gonna say something. I'll let you. I'll let you finish your last
I
thought.
thought we could have finished third last season. We should have.
Hmm.
And then this season, why we've gotten better and other teams haven't. So why wouldn't I think third is good? Like,
To answer this question, that's a tough one. I actually think Wolves and Everton have a very similar squad. I would say Wolves have far more
Wolves
attacking
defense.
potency.
Wolves, Kilman, Collins, Sarr.
But even
it's
defensively,
very
I
solid.
think a lot of that is not so much personnel based, but because Everton have injuries, but also a poor coach. Like I think Bruno Lage does really well to have a really good system in place.
Nathan Collins is one of the signings of this.
Yeah,
of
but
this
then you've got
last window. I think
Tarkowski
he's
and Ben
very, very
Godfrey.
good.
Godfrey's gone, and that's a big reason to why Everton aren't, there defensively. And I think Everton have a much better midfield. Onana Gay,
They do have much better midfield,
is a crazy.
In
And
fact,
I'm always gonna
that's a-
bet on midfield for me personally, but I think Wolves are more attacking. So generally, I'm gonna say that if everyone was fit, I think Everton have a much more balanced squad than Wolves. But Wolves have the better manager and the greater attacking potency, and so that's gonna maybe make them better in the table. Even if I think the squad at Everton is better.
yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And on your table, actually, I've got a best and worst.
Now we finally got it. Now look.
Best is West Ham because then 18th now, and I think they'll shoot up the table. They just started poorly, and I think West Ham shoot up. And worst is I'm acting like I don't remember your table. Worst is Wolves over Leeds. That's my worst. Yeah,
by a big margin, or just like you would have
just
switched.
having them switched.
Oh, okay, fair.
I put mine up.
Okay, Curran, look, you've got a lot of changes, so I'm going to give you the microphone and the reins.
I'm
Go
going
for it.
this way. I'm going this way. I'm changing. We're all changing. We're switching sides. So yeah, I have a lot of changes. Liverpool are not winning the league, guys. This is a shock. Shock to me. A shock, I think, to everyone here. Liverpool are not winning the league.
No. The top two people argued with you on the original predictions show.
Okay. I still have them second though. Second and third for me is decided by injuries. I think whoever keeps their team fitter, i.e. Thiago versus Thomas and El Neni, I think that's the major battle there. If one of those teams can keep their midfield fit, then I think they come second. I think that's what decides it. And I do agree with George that I think they'll reinforce in January, Liverpool. But we'll have to see. I think it's going to be quite tight. I do have Spurs over Chelsea because I just think with the upheaval of that squad and Potter issues, their midfield is still dog shit. It's still Jorginho, Havertz. We don't know what's going on. I just feel like there's so many games coming up so fast. If he doesn't get it together in the next 2 weeks, then they're going to come. The game's going to come quick and fast, and he's going to, he's going to struggle. So I just think that in that,
I'm telling you right
scenario,
now, that's going to be my biggest point of contention. But sorry,
I know.
continue.
This is the thing. So look, I just think that there's going to be. Did I freeze again? This is why I have to go when my internet goes good, because I'm in a hotel. I'm not in
Your
my
audio,
home.
thankfully, is actually kind of catching up. Your video is just a little laggy, which is going to be funny.
There
But
we
sorry, yeah, go ahead while
There
you
we
can.
go. So yeah, I have West Ham a lot lower. I think that there's some teething problems there. That they are a very good team. I just think that with the Conference League, Moyes kind of struggled last year with that. I think their midfield is amazing. I just don't know how Moyes is going to rotate it. I think there's been some struggles. I do agree they will shoot up the table, but you look at the likes of Palace, look at the likes of Newcastle. These are very consistent teams, and it's the case of same with Chelsea. If they don't get it together quickly because of the World Cup, it's going to hinder their place. This is the season where you have to start quick, because the amount of games before the World Cup, this is crucial. These are crucial games now. Like last year, we were saying from after December, you start to see a settled table. Now it's November. Like the games are coming quick and fast. So I just feel like the slow starters are going to feel it a lot more, and you have to really take that into account. So I've gone with Palace because I love Palace. I think Newcastle are a very good team. Then I've gone West Ham. I've won Brentford and Brighton. I think Brighton, for me, Tony Bloom. I completely agree with George on. This man has gone from Dan Ashworth and Graham Potter to now going through this summer window with one of the best windows in terms of getting a Stupinan, getting some of these other guys in, selling Cucurella for 62 million. Like they've done very, very well. So their recruitment is still outstanding, and they might get De Zerbi or Gallardo or one of these other names that just pop off the table. It's incredible. So, but the thing is, there's too much uncertainty to put them above a Brentford right now in this moment in time for me. So I actually have them 11th. Leeds, I like the look of. I really like the look of Leeds. I like Brennan Aronson. The kind of USA vibe they've got going on there. It's kind of all hamburgers and fries over there. I don't know what's going on. It's all it's a crazy vibe over there. It's going well for them. And with Bamford back, hopefully, some really good players coming through. I think Meslier can have a much more settled season than he did last year. I think that they'll be okay. Wolves, I actually think they have a very good defense personally. Max Kilman, the likes of Nathan Collins, what's the left? Eight Nori as well. Saar. They have a very good. I think they have a very settled defense, and they proved that last year. And now you have got Gonzalo Guedes. You've got Neto staying. You've got Diego Costa, who we don't know what the hell is going to do. If he does anything, it'll be a benefit to them. So we don't know what he'll bring. And one of my biggest changes is Fulham. I think Fulham, I underestimated the Mitrovic effect. I thought maybe he would struggle to start off, but he's having a great season, and I was wrong about that. So yeah, I have them there. Villa, I have much lower than I thought. I just didn't know where to put them last time. But yeah, I think that they're pretty good. And then we get into the relegation fight. I think Everton will make it. I think they as we mentioned, their midfield is very good. And the only thing is how long is Pickford out for? Because if Pickford's out for a
short
month,
term, like 6 weeks.
Is it short term?
Well, 6 weeks.
So
like a month.
6 weeks, and this is the thing. If he misses October, and there's 5 games in there.
Most, I think he'll probably come back at the end. But again, that's like he'll be there for 2 games of the 10 or something like that.
Yeah, so that's a lot, man. And these next 2 months, October, November, are so crucial because the amount of games we're playing.
They decide the league for me, relegation, top or whatever.
So this is the thing, and I personally, I think Leicester are going down. I really do. Danny Ward is their number 1. No Fofana replacement. No reinforcements in key positions. They needed a right wing. They needed more. They needed a centre back. They needed a goalkeeper. The midfield is a bit it can be a bit iffy. I don't like Ndidi, and Samari has been hot and cold. I hope he comes through because that's our boy on the channel, but I just don't think he's coming through right now. So for me, it's interesting to see what they'll do. I think they'll come 18th. I think it will be close between them and Southampton. I just think Southampton is. I feel like I have more faith in Southampton to do something than I do Leicester. I feel like Leicester will lose more games than Southampton this year because they don't have the stability in defence. Bella Kotchap has been amazing for Southampton this year. I think him and Salisu. I can trust that defence. I can trust that. Can I trust Amate? Can I trust Vestergaard? These guys, like I don't trust that. They do have some good players. Leicester, like some Madison, Dewsbury Hall, Vardy if he's fit, Daka, Iheanacho. There's some good players there, but I just don't see it. And then Nottingham Forest, they've just brought too many players in for me. I think they're going to be one of these teams that have a great kind of like. They'll have like periods where they'll go on a little bit of a run and then it'll just come all crashing down. Because when you have a team that you've built in the summer, it's kind of all dependent on how they gel, and they seem to be doing okay. But in this season, when there's so many games, you need to be picking up points consistently, and I just don't feel like they will. And then I have Bournemouth at the foot of the table, so I think they're not good. I think Scott Parker leaving is going to be a massive loss for them. I don't even know who they've replaced him with, but yeah, I think that's it for me. I think. I didn't even talk about United because screw them. But yeah, that's my table.
Okay.
Go on, best and worst.
Go on, Chris.
Jeez. I don't like how high Aston Villa is.
Still.
Yeah.
Damn.
What else?
Because I dropped them like 4 places.
The Chelsea Spurs thing. Like Spurs haven't been that good either. They haven't
been that good, but I just feel like they're going to be a team. I just don't know what Chelsea can bring in that midfield, and their striker situation is abysmal. So I don't really know what they're doing.
Well, Kane's the only attacker that's been good for Spurs this season. Good.
Yeah,
good.
I mean, they've had 2 or 3 good performances. Spurs.
Son hasn't been good at all. So they're not getting the same amount of chances scored. They're wasting a lot of chances as well. And through 9 games, I think Chelsea can change more in those 9 games because that's 9 including Europe. In those 9 games, Chelsea will be able to change more, I think, and keep up or keep a level in Spurs. And I think they'll be above Spurs after October, and I think they'll continue to be there. And then I think those 2 are the worst, and best I'd say you switching Liverpool from first to second. Like, obviously, we told you from the start that Liverpool won't win the league. You thought they would, and
I didn't think they would.
I just seen where you put West Ham. How come you have them 9th?
I said I feel like their midfield is still gelling, and Palace and Newcastle are both very good and very consistent teams. I think that
for me,
I'm going to address.
I love Palace, but Vieira's really annoyed me with how much he brings Olise off the bench and he doesn't start him, and he allows teams to stay in the game for so long that they draw a lot, which you'll see in my table. But that annoys me a lot about Palace. And then I just think Aston Villa is way too high. Aston Villa's too high, West Ham's too low, and I think Chelsea will finish above Spurs.
Yeah, so you know what? Look, I'm gonna address definitely the Blazers question because it was probably one of my best and worst. But I also wanted to do the Moyes thing because, again, like for me, if he finishes as low as you have him, Curran, he should be threatening really like sack in terms of what they invested into him, because that squad is incredible. I think if you're right and they do struggle to gel, like you're saying, I think that's a dangerous one. That's probably something I was surprised at. But really, I think my biggest gripe with your table is going to be Southampton and Leicester, because I think for me, I don't agree with the assumption that I can trust Southampton more than I can Leicester. I think you've got a really good partnership that you mentioned in Salisu and Bella Kotchap, but I think the quality of Leicester's midfield and attack potency is just far more. And I think for me, at the bottom of the table, it's really about goals. As in terms of making sure that you're changing things, and I just don't see the goals. I think the youth recruitment at Southampton is going to be their undoing. We mentioned Bella Kotchap has been a revelation, but I really think that that revelation is going to halter at times in the season, and I don't think you can rely on that. It's a very young center back partnership. I think Salisu is a good player, but has some bozo moments himself. So that for me is something that I'm worried about, and I just think that their recruitment was too young. And when you're looking,
I just think that not replacing Fofana and having Soyuncu,
it's a problem.
Mate,
don't get me wrong. I don't think that the table and the points. I don't think the point difference, by the way, is much here because again, I think actually my biggest question to you, Curran, is going to be Aston Villa amongst all of this.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the biggest difference. That
I think Gerrard gets sacked after this weekend, but personally.
So you think he gets sacked so soon that he's able to turn it around?
Yeah. I don't think he's there for much longer. That's the main reason I put them there.
But
otherwise, because
that's assuming you think they don't beat Southampton.
I don't think they beat Southampton this weekend. No, I think that Southampton have momentum. They've put some very good results. Beating Chelsea is massive for them, and I think their defense is solid enough to keep out whatever they're going to get chucked at with Ings or Watkins or Buendia, Coutinho, whoever. I don't think they'll be able to be broken down, and I do trust Southampton won that game. So I did forget to mention that. I do apologize. I have Gerrard to be next sacked. I think Gerrard will be next sacked. So yeah.
Look, also ultimately, I'm not going to read the
Blaze. This is the other thing I was saying about Ward. This is the other thing I was saying because
to be fair, it wasn't like Schmeichel was tearing it up. Like, let's be clear.
No,
Schmeichel
but he's even
one
worse.
Of the worst in the leagues, and I think
he's even worse though.
I don't know if that's actually.
No, he really is. Like he's even
I think
worse.
Ward is worse, but it's not that big a difference.
It's not that big. It's not that
I
big
think
a difference.
them taking out.
But the fact that it is worse, should say it all.
Them taking out Vardy is good for me because Vardy's been rubbish for a long time, and
Daka needs to get into the team.
So Daka,
Samari is just being wasted.
Look, I totally understand that people want them down, but I just can't see it with the quality. Guys, run through the list: Daka, Vardy, Iheanacho, Harvey Barnes, Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Tielemans, Madison, Samare. Like, again, I think the Brendan Rodgers effect is serious. I think it's absolutely they're not maximizing the squad. All of those things are true. I just think the quality there is
how
just
many
far
times
too
have
much.
you seen that all those names you've mentioned on the pitch this season?
At various points, but that's the problem, right? Like I think that's the only reason. That's the only reason they're fighting relegation. I think to get physically relegated is a whole other topic, because then when you start comparing them to basically Southampton, you're basically looking at that squad. And what are the critiques of the Southampton squad? They both have managers that aren't getting the most of their squad. But the one thing is Southampton are incredibly young. The one thing that Leicester don't have, and I think that matters. I think another thing is they don't have goal threat. And again, I think for me personally, when you look at the bottom of the table, you need to analyze goals. When you talk about at the top of the table, we're going to really talk about defense. But yeah, no, I think I agree. We could probably definitely move on. It's almost 45 minutes in, and we don't want to be here forever. But yeah, Curran,
no. You said move the table, not thing. Move the table.
No, well, we're going to do that. We're going to do that.
The last thing I'm going to say is that you look at Leicester in close races over this whole last cycle. I just think that you see them when it gets tight, it shows. They don't have it. They don't have the ability to see out things. They're not good at it. They cost us top four with the stupid that 3-1, 3-2, whatever it is.
Whatever it was
in injury time. Then they're not great.
Again,
in terms of
when we
seeing
talk
out things. So
I think when we talk about these teams, it's all going to be marginal. I'm going to really quickly answer this question about what happened to Samare. Ultimately,
I wrote about it. You can have a look.
Yeah, I mean, Curran's wrote about it. There's a lot of things to talk about. Fundamentally, Leicester and Brendan Rodgers are not using him in a way that he needs to be maximized. They've never once used him as a lone pivot. Not that that's something that he can learn right away, but they've never once used it. They've never used him in a role that is kind of what he's used for. He's somebody that should be sweeping, but as well as starting progression. They've never used him in that role. They've never had him on the pitch for longer than 6 games in a row in the Premier League. That's a problem. I don't care who you are as a person. I think that's an issue. But I think in terms of why he doesn't play games, I just think he's not fancied by Brendan Rodgers fundamentally. And he's playing people, namely Yuri Tielemans at 6 over Boukari Soumaré, which I think is not right at all.
It's
and
nonsense.
Even if you wanted to maximize Yuri Tielemans, you would want a defensive presence behind him. So it's just very muddled thinking. I just think it's Brendan Rodgers being stubborn. So for me, that's kind of what I think about Soumaré. But look, it is that time of the stream to basically give Chris his view. So mate, why don't you throw up your table and I'll give the reins over to you to basically explain yourself. I love that you're basically on trial on these episodes. You look at these predictions and you basically say, okay, let's see, explain yourself. So let's see.
No, but you two always agree on everything, and everyone's just like, Curran,
it's annoying.
Screw it. It really is.
No. Really, you want to know what the truth is, guys?
It really is annoying.
Chris, you know what the truth is? Chris has me go first so then he can copy. And what he's been doing this whole time is he's been copying my table and then reworking it. And he's been betting. So anyways, enough of that.
I haven't been copying your table. I do mine before you guys send me yours.
I know. I'm just joking. Okay, so go ahead. Throw it up.
Close your mouth. Anyways.
Explain yourself.
Best time of the stream, George is off.
Yeah, my top 10 didn't change apart from switching Newcastle and Palace. And the only reason I did that is because Vieira hasn't played Elise. And it's something he did last season. And anyone who watches the channel knows I love Crystal Palace. But Vieira keeps starting Jordan Ayew or whoever he can right wing over Elise and then bring him on in the 60th minute to try to change the game when they could kill off teams early. Like, they start well versus teams. They scored 1-1 versus Brentford, and then something Zaha said that they just sit off.
Can I ask you a question? Just before you explain that, because I think the Elise discussion is fair. We'll do it for like 30 seconds. But the one thing I'll ask you is, do you not think it's because he considers him more of a player that can be inside and he's working to train him to be inside? I know we've had these debates, me and you. I feel as though he uses the right winger for a touchline option. And I think the big debate should not be using Jordan Ayew, but why is he not using a BUA in that role? Because if you want to have a touchline winger, then no problem. But I do think he's working with Elise to be inside. I don't think Elise is somebody, well, he is somebody that can create separation quite well. I don't think he's that touchline creative player that I think they're asking of that role. And I think it's very fair to ask, why are you not using a BUA over Ayew for that? But do you think it has anything to do with Elise being trained to be more inside and to be probably combined with Eze?
Probably, but the issue is when he brings him on, the team's mentality, like 8 times out of 10 games, he'll bring him on and they're winning. And the team's mentality as a team that's generally finished bottom half all the time, they just sit off. And Zaha hates it. He said it like, we're dominating the game. We're dominating Brentford 1-0. Why are we sitting off? Why are we sitting off and allowing them to get back into the game 1-1? And it's not nothing new. That happened to them before. And so when he brings in a guy like Elise, who really does his best work when they have momentum, like when they're 1-0 up, like last year when they're 1-0 up versus City and Elise comes on in momentum, counter-attacks, 2-0, they win. So him bringing him on in the way they do, I don't like it. And I don't remember the last time Elise played 90 minutes. I really don't. And he is probably their third most potent player after Zaha and Eze. And then the striker situation, they didn't get a new one. And any striker they play is inconsistent. You'll get a great game from Mateta one game, like the game he had versus us, and then the next game you'll get a poor one. So I think that inconsistency up top will hurt them. And then Brighton, they've just been cooking teams. Like even when they went 2-2 with Leicester, they were still dominating the game and they won 4-2. I think Brighton are a very good team despite Potter leaving. That infrastructure and Tony Bloom, who you guys...
As you're talking, by the way, keep going, but throw up your table so that people can have a look at it.
Oh, I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Brighton could easily finish higher. Brentford I've liked all season. Tony's been very good. And Buemo has been touchline right wing, which I have not liked. You had Man United in the conference? Yeah. I had them.
This is the funny thing, guys, is that I hate United, I would say the most out of the three of us, and I have them highest. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
You just talk about them the most. Doesn't mean you hate them.
No. No,
I do hate
you
them the most.
definitely don't hate them the most, given the previews. Okay, but no, yeah, we both have them in the.
If I'm being honest, I had United ninth, and then I changed it. I could have put a table there that had United ninth, but then I was really thinking about like if Brighton losing their manager has put them 11th for me, and then Newcastle and Palace I think are very good teams. Newcastle's a top 4 team at home. They're better than Chelsea, better than Spurs, better than United at home. Where the three Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man City are the only teams better than them at home. I think that's big for them, especially when they can pretty much guarantee 25, 30 plus points at home. And to get so high, you need that. And then Brentford, I didn't finish talking about. They've been a bit different this year with Mbuemo touchline right wing. Sorry, more time he was a second striker type with Tony. Now he's touchline right wing. It hasn't worked as well. He's getting a lot of shots off apart from one game where I needed him to get shots.
I think their distances are too much because Ivan Toney prefers dropping in the left half space if he does drop at all, and so their spaces you haven't got their best goal threats as close together. But I think that actually bodes well for us, and I'm actually really happy, by the way, that Zinchenko's injured because of that. But anyways, we get into the preview talk for tomorrow. But
whenever he comes inside, you see that goal like he did when they beat United 4-0. Whenever he comes inside, he's actually a very composed 1v1 finisher. And then Leeds, I think Leeds have been good this season. They've been passionate. A lot of yellows, a lot of end-to-end games, a lot of fun games to watch. Jesse March told the ref to F off. They've been very passionate, heart on the sleeve stuff. They leave it all out there. It's beneficial but negative at the same time because when you play like that, the opposition will always have a chance because you're always willing to commit. And then Fulham, as George said, very direct team. Most long balls in the league, least passes to lead into shots. They're very direct.
They're the most direct, and by a margin. It's not even close. They're clearly the most direct team in the league.
But they caused us issues to a certain extent.
Yeah,
I think they will cause many teams issues because the way they play is how most teams try to switch when they're losing in the 90th minute, but Fulham play that for 90 minutes. So always give them a chance to score. And then Everton I've liked actually watching. Iwobi's been good pretty much every game. Gordon has the most shots on target in the league. DCL is yet to come back, and I think he'll perform well when he does come. Onana's been decent. I just think I don't really like their defense, but apart from that, I think
because Godfrey's injured too.
Yeah, I think in midfield they can deal with or combat against most, probably.
And their attack, when you 16, think about
17 teams, apart from maybe Man City, but even Man City, they could give them a problem.
But you know what I think people aren't realizing, Chris? When you actually have a look at Everton's squad, it's kind of crazy in terms of their attack and their midfield. It's very, very good.
Yeah, to give them a chance versus most teams. When you have someone like Gordon who's willing to shoot on sight, clearly has he's had a game with 5 shots on target. He has been very willing to shoot on sight this season.
Iwobi has been incredible as a left center mid 8, and he always was.
Even Mopai was good last game. He was good last game versus Liverpool.
Yeah, I wonder if they use Mopai inside, and I wonder if they just say screw it, let's have the fullbacks high and wide, let's get ourselves. Gordon can stay touchline if he wants, but Dominic Calvert-Lewin will drop. Let's have Mopai attack the space on the right.
And I think they've got very good prospect to do something with the players they do have. The midfield, when you have a midfield like that, you will always get a chance. I think because a midfield like that, Iwobi can just turn it on randomly any game. He's been consistent all season, very good. And Amadou Onana is strong indoors. He's risky to get a yellow, but he's strong indoors and will give you a chance. And then their defense isn't good enough for me to get them closer to the likes of Newcastle, Palace, and Brentford. Because with a better defense, they could easily finish 8th. Honestly,
with a manager, they're already 13th.
Yeah. So then,
they're top half with a better manager.
Why I have Everton over Wolves is because Wolves get in the box and mess up. They do very well to get up to the box, I think, and they've got good dual players all over the pitch. I don't like that they play Matheus Nunes right centre mid. I think he's much better to play left centre mid. And then
it's pissing me off.
It's not the best way to use him. And Moutinho's too big a name there for them to move him or for them to want to move him, which would be detrimental. And then George's boy Guedes has been decent actually. A player like that is useful till you really get into the box, and sometimes he's inconsistent in the box.
Well, if he could do that, he's a £100 million player.
He's not the only player. He's not. He's that. The issue is everyone in their attack is like that.
Yeah.
They're not consistent in the box, and that's why I have like Fulham over them. And DCL is more consistent than anyone Wolves have in the box. And Gordon, surprisingly, Gordon has been very good in the box, on the edge of the box this season. When the Chelsea link came out, everyone was like, "How can we want someone who only scores deflected goals?" Then the weeks after, he scores, and then Forest. Why do I have Forest not relegated? I've liked Forest. I always said it. Like I've liked Forest. I like their signings. Like Morgan Gibbs-White has been very good. Brennan Johnson might be my favorite player in the Premier League. What else? Lingard. I think they should bench him. And not because he's rubbish. I just think they should bench Lingard, put on Dennis, have a player you can trust as a focal point, and then let Lingard come off the bench. I think that would be better for the team and allow them to dominate games early and not like they crumbled versus Bournemouth. They should have won the game. They crumbled and allowed Bournemouth to come back in and win 3-2. Solanke is back, which is good for Bournemouth. And then Leicester just have too much quality to get relegated, I think. I think when you have Barnes, who can win a game on his own and has done for Leicester in the past, same as Maddison, same as Daka, who can score 4 goals in a game. When you have players like that, I think you can't get relegated. That's really it for me, because the other teams below them don't have it. Like Aston Villa have Coutinho, who hasn't done it much, but he could bang one in the top corner from far. But Ings and Watkins aren't consistent enough, and they got cheated out of a win. To be fair,
Yeah, no, I agree.
City.
You know what?
Apart from that, I think Southampton are just too young, as I've said early. They've got some good prospects. Bella Kotcher has been very good this season so far, but he'll make mistakes. Salisu will get an own goal this season. He gets one every season. And then Che Adams, who I like, is inconsistent as well. So I think the inconsistency of having someone young or having a young team, but then the older players being inconsistent as well, doesn't bode well for them. And then I hate the manager, really.
Yeah, so that is Chris's overview of his table. You know, I'm going to go into it really quickly. This is a little fun thing that we'll all do. For me, they probably get relegated like game week 27. I think it's actually quite early.
11 games to go. That is early, boy.
I don't think that they're very good.
That's what end of March, April.
Exactly. I think that they're relegated by that point, personally. But how about you, Chris? Really quickly, quick fire. Let's do that. What game week?
31.
31. Okay, and then,
which is like seven games to go, and they're done.
And then, Curran, how about you? Do you have a game week? God, his internet is so far behind. So when he hears this, eventually he'll chime in with.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
So what game week?
It disconnected me.
So what game week do you say?
32, 33, something around there.
Okay. So you know
what? Worst on my table before we go, George.
Yeah, best and worst. I was gonna say, and then we'll end on that. So for me, the best and worst. Here, I'll throw up the table once again, just so that we can have everything.
Move yourself to the right so they can see your face.
I don't know. No, it's okay. People want to see your face. You know.
No. I mean, like, move your body. Move your body.
Oh, here. Okay.
Yeah.
God, this is so weird. But no, listen. Essentially, here, I don't know. It's very similar to mine. Your issue is basically Wolves. It's basically identical, bar Wolves being low and higher, and you've swapped Palace and Newcastle. Otherwise, it's identical. So I think the biggest issue that I've got is Wolves. I disagree with you. I don't know why they're so low personally. I know that they're having issues in the box, but for me, I think their team and their midfield is far too good and personnel-wise to warrant them being that low. I think they're going to be higher up. If anything, I could understand maybe Fulham or Everton being a little bit lower, but for me, their quality and attack is just far too much. They're going to get goals for me. That's going to put them up to table, probably where they don't deserve, but nonetheless, that's probably something I disagree with here. But other than that, I think the best part of your table, I'm going to say, is the Spurs-Chelsea thing. We didn't quite get to do this on Curran, but really quickly, I think that the biggest miss is people thinking that Spurs are a balanced team. I think regardless
themselves.
Yeah, they've been really poor, and I think
they've had 2 good performances, I think.
The biggest myth that they have is a team that has played poor but relied on cheating XG for so long is going to catch up to you. And I think that despite Chelsea also being unbalanced, they've got a coach or a manager rather that I believe is a much more modern person to implement the things that they need to right now. And Antonio Conte is somebody that I believe is too stuck in his ways. It hurts ever more presently that Basuma is not tactically fit for them, supposedly. But anyways, that's another story on its own. And the fact that he's not using Jed Spence, like it's crazy. So for me, I think that's your best call, Chris, because I totally agree with it. And I don't think we quite addressed it in the stream so far yet, but I think people are underestimating Chelsea's quality and overestimating this title-winning championship mentality of Antonio Conte. I think that it does really poor for them. And I also think that Harry Kane, his mind goes elsewhere. I actually think this is the last season that we see of him in the Premier League, which is probably a big call. But for me, I really think that Bayern call is serious. And I don't know if Heung-min Son gets out of this slump. I really think that he's finally cheated his as much as he can at this point.
Finally caught up to him.
Yeah, and it always does, but I think it finally has for me. So yeah, that's going to be my best and worst. Curran, you go first, and then I'll throw it over to Chris for last thoughts as well before I sign us off. So Curran, go. When you hear it, of course.
I'm here. I hear you. Look, I think the best call for me is probably, I think Leeds actually. I think Leeds being a bit higher. I think that they're well placed. I think that's a good position for them. I think Brighton, good position for them. I agree with that. That mid-table is nice for me. I personally would switch West Ham and United, I think, and put Newcastle above them as well. I think West Ham are going to have issues this season personally. But the main issue I have is Notts Forest not going down. I think Notts Forest. I think there's a massive issue with their with the amount of players they've bought, and it's a massive gamble to put that there. I think it's just not something that I personally would agree with. I mean, if they brought a new squad in, and this isn't a season, I'm going to keep reiterating it. This isn't a season where you have time. Time is not of the essence. So yeah, I think that's probably my call.
And yeah, for me, I think the reason why I have Everton over Wolves is because I just think I trust Everton's players who shoot on sight a lot more to get the goals that they have done consistently over the season over Wolves. And Wolves do get a lot of injuries frequently throughout the season. It could easily change. I think it will be tight around. I think 12th to 15th will be very tight, and it could easily change. But that's the way I've gone with it. And Leeds could finish 15th at Wolves 12th. That's how I think. I think between them four is going to be very tight.
Yeah, it'll be a mini league. We've kind of talked about it quite a bit. But guys, listen, it's that time of the stream where I do my thing. You guys in the comments, please let us know where you think we went wrong. Where you guys think we went right. What are your tables too? We'd love to know. You guys let us know where you guys think we got the worst part of it. But guys, I'm going to do my thing. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. You hit that bell for notifications to know when in fact we do upload. Guys, thank you for so much for all the engagement. We got some stuff coming for you. Listen, we took a little bit of a mini break this week just because we have a lot of football that's coming up, and we're going to have tons to review for you. So tomorrow we're going to be back with a preview. We'll let you guys know on the time a little bit more on Twitter. But you can find everybody on our socials here. So at me, George, at GeorgeV_AFC. You can find Curran at Curran BoP. And of course, Chris, you can find him at CKFTBL. That's at CK Football. You can find us at Ball Over Passion or at BoP Footy on Twitter. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we're going to catch you guys tomorrow with a preview for Brentford. So keep it real, guys. And thank you so much. And we'll catch you on the next one. So peace, everybody.
Peace.